changed in the title, obviously. Anyways, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining here, whatever platform you're joining on. It's a bit of a groggy day here in Hong Kong. We've had rain all week, and it started with the black rainstorm and then sort of downgraded into extremely heavy and incessant rain, and is now trying to make its mind up. So it's a little bit gray, a little bit tired this week as a result. I don't know if any of you get that, where you're a little bit grubby on days that it's more rainy and less sun, but that's what we're going through here in Hong Kong. So lots of umbrellas and lots of no taxis available when you want to go places because everyone's trying to get one. So thank you so much for joining on whatever platform you're on. I'm Raven. You can catch me on many different social medias, including Twitter at Raven Tao and Instagram at Raven Tao. And then we are broadcasting across a number of different platforms from the platform of HAPS, which means that this is going to be live. And if you see comments that come up that are on your platform, you'll be able to see them, comment on them. But if you hear me responding to things that aren't visible to you, then there's a chance that it has come up on a different platform. And HAPS consolidates all of the comments into one place, which is absolutely brilliant, and why I love broadcasting with them, because then I can see all of you and all your different places that you prefer to be in one place and respond to you all. So just a heads up that if you can't see other people's comments that I'm responding to, then that's probably why. And if you want to see all the comments, you can come join us over on HAPS anytime you like. So thank you so much for joining. Today we're going to be talking about those 5 beginners financial stability pillars. And the reason for this is because I'm launching a business that's been in the works for a really long time now, for many of the months of this year. Thank you for all the support and all of the cheering and everything. It's been a very hard slog to get all the content together on these 5 pillars of financial stability that I've created for this brand, MoneyMind. So if you go onto my Instagram, Raven Tao, you'll see that it's very eclectic, but that it's starting to show up with a lot of, well, not a lot, but a few pictures and images that are referring to MoneyMind. And we're really in the phase of starting to build our social media in that area after taking quite a big absence from all social media generally. So I was broadcasting a lot on Periscope before it closed down on April 2021. And Twitter decided to close down Periscope because whatever different reasons, putting their energy towards different things. And it just meant that we lost all of the followers and all of the friends and all of the people who were there on Periscope that had been uniting in that community. So now we're still in that phase of having to figure out where each other are and and find each other again. So all of us who had very large Periscope followers are now broadcasting on platforms like HAPS or Twitter, and retouching base, realigning what we want to be talking about for I can only speak for myself, really. Some of us have left town, other people have changed countries, different topics. So for myself, I realized that it was a really good opportunity for me to really reassess what I wanted to be spending time on, and that's financial literacy and money mindsets. And that's exclusively what I'll be broadcasting about on my social media, with my personal social media account having some of my own personal journey doing all this, and empowerment experiences, or how I cope with anxiety, or how I cope with, really wanting to achieve things and then have to figure out how to get old habits out of the way so that I can do better in those areas. So the personal account at Raven Tao on Instagram is going to be just my journey creating all of this and being an entrepreneur on that journey. And all of the other social media accounts that you'll be watching this on will be for MoneyMind, financial literacy, financial empowerment, mission and purpose around the world, wherever you are. This is what this has been created to foster and encourage: community and connectivity, people talking about these topics. So here online, we want to foster community and connectivity, talking about these topics and really feeling empowered with our own money and our own money choices. As a result of this, there's going to be a lot of same topic overlap including these 5 pillars. And the 5 pillars of money mind are money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. Those 5 pillars again: money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. So I realized on my journey of feeling very overwhelmed by money management stuff and feeling like I'm terrible at maths. I'm never going to be good at money. I'm just doomed. What do I do? These 5 pillars are the basics of the financial foundation that we need to be able to be okay with our money. It's that simple. As a result of that, I created Money Mind, and I'm now sharing it with you because this is such a usable concept. It's so plug and play. Anyone who knows about these 5 pillars can immediately apply them in their own lives if they make the choice that they feel that it is relevant or applicable to use someone else's experience, my experience, for their own benefit or gain. Now, I have to disclaimer here, as I do on all videos, I'm not a financial industry professional. This is not advice, and I do not give this as advice. These are opinions only. I will be talking about things with my own opinionated opinions. And because I have no financial qualifications, and I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a financial industry professional, none of this should be constituted as advice and will generally be quite high level overview stuff anyways. It's more of an empowerment on behaviors course. And that's what we focus on. We want to be great at money without maths, if that's possible. So we want to focus on behaviors instead of being overwhelmed by the maths of it all. So with that in mind, I wanted to just dive into a little bit about the 5 pillars and what they are and why they're there. Now, I noticed quite early on in this journey of, being young and not knowing how to manage my money, spending on credit cards, earning well, but it would all go, and then wanting to invest, but not knowing how to structure it, feeling too busy and overwhelmed by my actual work to spend time in this area, developing it, and wondering why I hadn't been taught all this stuff in school. So all of those jumbled together meant that I completely avoided and not just neglected this area, but actively avoided it. I don't know if any of you have ever done that active avoidance thing where just like, I'm just gonna like not look at this for a while and just kind of keep going that way and see if it works itself out, which it doesn't. It never does. Okay, that's what I've learned. If we are avoiding our money stuff, it never works out. It's just life. That's just how it is. If we are avoiding our money stuff, it never works out because we need to direct where our money goes and what it's doing. Otherwise, it's just a mess. Unfortunately, that's just how it is and how it ends up playing out, if not immediately, longer term. And I mean, over like long term, I could be like 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, but it will always unravel. It's like being on a boat with no direction. You'll wind up on shore eventually, maybe, but you're not going to be in good shape when you get there. So don't do it. As Arnie says, right, in the Terminator movies, don't do it. When he was talking about in the recent Terminator movie where Carl's drapes, and he said they were talking about having this really boring curtains, and I said to them, don't do it. That was, yeah, definitely the best ad lib of the whole movie for sure. So anyhow, I obviously love the Terminator series, the Alien series, Marvel comic geek a little bit, but like old, because I'm old. So I like the X-Men. Everyone can like hate on me for that. Go ahead. Go ahead. I don't care. I love the X-Men. Yeah. So anyhow, back to back to the topic. Expect a lot of this type of stuff, right? And especially when we start to get more commenters and more people joining for the broadcast, then it can get a little bit crazy. Yeah. But until then, it's still just a little bit crazy, like Cheshire Cat crazy over here. Me on my own, dancing away. Okay, so the 5 pillars of Money Mind money mindset, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. When we went through our journey of going into developing a startup, my husband decided to join a startup, and I was doing my corsetry brand at the time, more of a hobbyist exploration for me to be able to explore something that I was very passionate or enthusiastic about. I think more that I really loved it. And I had taken a break from many, many years in media. I said, you know what, I need a little bit of grounding. I'd started work quite young, at 17, full time, and I wanted to go ahead and have some like normal, real life, because I realized that I was avoiding things, I was making a mess of things, and I was just sort of running on go instead of asking, what do I need to perform better? What do I need to have sustainable habits in my life? Asking those types of questions. I realized that because I wasn't asking them and they weren't getting answered, I was ending up in destinations that weren't very sustainable for me and weren't getting me the results that I felt would have benefited my mental health and my well-being in the best possible way. So that could have been ending up out really late at night, with people who are wonderful. I've never really been much of an alcohol drinker, so just, being out, just sort of quite sober and hanging out, enjoying being around the people, but then realizing, I'm sleeping late the next day, and then, when I'm working, I'm not seeing anybody at all, and no anything like no going out late, no staying up late. Like if I was like booked for jobs and I'm like in hotels, I'm like straight back to the hotel, shoot, back to the hotel, shoot, back to the hotel. Like there's no social life, there's no eating at restaurants. There's just nothing outside of work. And with my social life, then it was sort of doing things that other people like to do, which would be kind of going out in the evenings and stuff like that, which I didn't really enjoy that much. But I was just doing it because that's just what, my friends were doing, and that's how I got to hang out with them. So once I realized that I was doing all this stuff that wasn't making me feel very fulfilled, I was just kind of running or chasing this idea of happiness that I wasn't actually fostering myself, then I realized that I would have to do some fostering. If I was running or chasing an idea of happiness that I wasn't actually building or fostering myself, I'm never going to get it. It's never going to suddenly appear. Happiness takes work and it takes creation. And that's what I realized I had to do. So with that in mind, I said, okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go and study law. I'm going to get a real estate license. So I decided to do all this stuff at the same time, which I definitely don't advise. But so I could get some hands-on working for, of real estate and the inner workings of all of that, just so that I can keep that in mind for my future portfolio use and experience, and did all that. And also my husband and got married and decided, okay, this is great. I've got some grounding now and I'm very pleased with it. What do I want moving forward? And I thought, I'd really like to try, after I finished my law studies, I'd really like to try, and I'd done some real estate, and I realized that I'd gained enough experience in that area to say, okay, this is probably not the best fit for me in terms of career, because I'm not a hard seller, and it's better if you're a very, very good salesperson in real estate. That's just how it is. So I said, okay, what do I actually want to be spending my time on long term? I would like to explore this fashion design area. And I did, and that was great. And then I thought, what would make the biggest impact in the world? What is still missing in my life? What is it that I feel would drive me moving forward? And I realized that while I was in that fashion brand space, and my corsetry designs were on like Asia's Next Top Model and magazine covers, and had some visibility, even though it was a hobbyist brand, so it wasn't intended to scale. It was just for me to work on and enjoy and explore that entrepreneurial experience. we had at that time also gone into, my husband stepping into a startup. And so he became the head of this startup with a partner. And it was a very stressful time because I realized that we had no experience of this level of financial stress, in terms of the instability of startup life. As anyone who's been in a startup or has any experience of startups, which I didn't have, so all of you who have had that experience would know, and I didn't know, and I didn't even know to look or like research. Like I just, I just was just blind in this area for some unknown reason. And I didn't have a great community of people to talk to about this, also because I didn't know to ask. As a result, within all this time, I started asking a lot of questions about how to plug the holes in my financial awareness. I said, wow, this startup experience has really brought to mind the fact that there are lots of areas that we could be doing better. And that includes being more attentive with budgeting, or being more aware of just the areas that we can control when our minds, or my mind, was going crazy with all the areas that I couldn't control, which was the volatility of the startup and how it was going to go. And the fact that it takes such a long time. It takes about 3 years apparently for a startup to be able to see whether it's going to survive or not. And that was quite a lot, especially when there's a lot of outgoing investing into a business, especially when there's large amounts outgoing, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to look at what I can do to make myself feel more stable and secure. I'm going to make sure, go back to the basics. Are the basics all solid and in place? I'm going to do what I can in terms to just make myself psychologically feel more stable. What do I need? And I needed just a simple plan. I needed to know what the basics were to have a financially stable life without big fuss, without lots of advisors, without, mess and drama, or, stock market investments, or, no crazy stuff like that. Just if I was to have a very financially stable life with the minimum effort possible, how would that look? What would be needed? What are the basic requirements? And these 5 pillars are the basic requirements. Money mindset, savings, investing, budgeting, investing, and wills and legacy. I realized through that time that those are the basics that we needed to implement in our family to make sure, yes, this is done, yes, this is done, yes, yes, yes. And then suddenly I'd feel more like I knew where we were going. I knew why we were doing it. I already knew what we were doing it. And I could work on focusing my attention to the areas that I could make a difference in, like my budgeting, or making sure that my, my will is in place, or making sure that, I was keeping an eye on outgoing, even if it was as simple as tracking my expenses in a day. That type of thing made a positive psychological impact and improved my overall confidence as a result of just making the effort. And making the effort really was the key part, because the effort caused me to become aware of it, and that awareness caused me to become more selective in my spending, and that caused me to become just more conscious of my choices overall. So because of that journey, because of the fact that I was suddenly able to reassess the basics and say, hey, we've got investments, we've got savings, we've got this and that, but it's all over the place and there's no structure. How do I bring it back in? How do I bring it in to say, okay, if we have debt, then how do we clear the debt and make sure that all the areas are kind of with like status levels? Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm doing great here. I'm doing, could be improved here. Like we could lower debt there, or, we could increase the savings here, but just to have eyes on the area that for a lot of us is really hazy. And if we don't have eyes on our money landscapes in these 5 pillars, then we often feel really stressed about it. And there's no need for us to, because we now have the 5 pillars. And we don't need to feel that stress anymore. All we need to do is apply these 5 pillars, and the stress should start to work itself out as a result of that application. So, 5 pillars, money mindsets. This is important because if we don't have the money mindsets that are aligned with our goals long term, we will scupper them. We will get in our way. We will sabotage that ambition or goal or dream because we don't believe it's possible. I know that sounds quite drama llama, but I have seen that type of thing happen many times, and it's really interesting psychologically. You know how a lot of lucky people think they're lucky, and they are lucky, and a lot of unlucky people think they're unlucky, and they are unlucky. I'm not necessarily saying that that is always the case. Obviously, that's possibly a logical fallacy that's just there. But the fact is that if we believe that something is true, our brain will do everything it can to make sure that we are aligned with it being true, because it is security and stability, and that's how it's built into our brains. It's important for our brain to believe and hold on to what we think is true. So if we have money mindsets that are like money's the root of all evil, we will start getting rid of that money. We will overshop. We will spend on stuff we don't even want. We don't even remember buying it. Like we're like, why? Why are we doing this? It's because we believe something that is in conflict with having money, even if we really want money. Like say if we say, oh, I'd really love to build wealth and stability and all these things. Yes, that's good and well. But if our money mindset says, but money is evil, and because money is evil, I don't want to be evil, and therefore I'm not doing that. No way. You go do that if you like. I'm gonna stay here. Okay, I'm not going with you. No, it's like someone going into a haunted mansion. It's like no, da, da, da. I'm not that person in the movie. I'm the person who gets cut out of the movie because they're like, oh no, guys, see ya later. I got some pizza to order at home. You go into the creepy mansion that has, like all these knives around the door. Like, I'm not doing that with you, okay? Goodbye. So that is your brain doing that if we have the wrong money mindsets in place for our goals. And so it's really, really important to get eyes on that space, the money mindset space. It's also really important to know how we're going to save and how that's going to work, how it works for us, and what we need to do in order to get to the position where we're able to save, especially if we have debt, and also how we pay off our debt first before saving, and also saving an emergency fund before anything else. So maybe starting with the $1,000 to begin with, and then working up to 3 to 6 months of expenses. And those 3 to 6 months of expenses, we'll figure out how much we need with the budgeting section. Now, this surprisingly was the most empowering section for me personally. And I was not expecting that because it was the part that I thought would be the most terrible and agonizing. And it was a bit stressful in many ways because I went through all these different budgets to try and figure out what would work for me, and figured out that some of these budgets really don't work for me, which is why I created my 25% budget, which is modular and able to be applied depending on our different stages of life. So we've got these different budget styles that I go over in the Money Mind course, and also have like tiny little videos on these topics as well that you can find on the website, Money Mind Global. But I went through exploring these budget styles and figuring out, hey, what's going to work for me, what isn't. And then I actually ended up creating a budget that would be more sustainable for me long term, in terms of not only, paying off any debt that we had, and then saving money, and then building investments, and then building wealth from there. So actually a budget that can work with that type of trajectory in mind. And when I say wealth, I mean, like normal everyday financial freedom life type of wealth, not like Bezos type wealth, right? that's a whole different thing. Okay, so that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about just living our lives how we want to live, with the freedom to be able to do what we want and give back into our community and spend our time in the way that is the most valuable and valued to us. So that's budgeting, and budgeting is really helpful for being a really major step in figuring all the rest out. When we get on top of our expense tracking, all these other things will suddenly start lining up. And I didn't expect that either, because I thought this is just going to be, like boring budgeting. Hi, everyone. Great to see you. Thanks for joining. But it turned out that budgeting was actually a really great way for me to feel more in control of what I was doing. And just that small step, making me feel a little bit more in control, is often where a lot of us have a lot of emotional and mental stress around money, because we don't feel like we're in control, and we feel like, it's on top of us, and we're overwhelmed, and, it's all very difficult, and we don't know why everyone else seems to have tools that we don't have, and it's not taught, and just, it's very exclusionary, something. Where, I don't know, we have that feeling sometimes like everyone knows stuff that we don't know and they're not telling us. But I spoke to a lot of people, and apparently a lot of these people also don't know. They just think the same thing as us. They've just kind of figured things out in a different way. And I don't think that's necessary, which is why I created these 5 pillars. So then we go into the investing part, which is very much figuring out what your risk profile is, what risk you're comfortable taking, and then seeing what type of investments will work for you with a financial advisor or someone else who can advise in this area. Not me, because I have no qualifications and this is not an area that I could even talk about. But just in the Money Mind course, we'd see that this is an area that I just kind of cover the basic cabs categories. I call them cabs because it's easy to remember, and it's just for like a taxi cab. A taxi will take you where you need to go. So like the cabs categories will take you where you need to go. Yeah, I know it's really cheesy and terrible, but that's just what it's going to be like here for like the whole history of this empowerment brand. Is going to be lots of cheesy, like terrible jokes. So the cabs is cash, alternatives, bonds, and stocks. And there'll be free videos on the Money Mind website. So for everybody who's interested to just get to know a little bit more about this, the website is moneymind.global. We're still creating the videos, and there'll be a lot of free videos on there. There will be an online course that can be paid for. And then there'll be, charity videos for me to do talks and work with schools and teenagers and things like that, because it's a social enterprise. And so it's very much built around fostering empowerment in the community and in people's lives. That's why it was designed. And that's, essentially where we got to being able to be in terms of a business. So that is something that is really important for me. I dissolved not dissolved, but I decided to focus entirely on building this instead of splitting my time between my Corsetry brand and this. And that was very difficult, but I realized that this is really, really important for so many people that I have to do it, especially because I don't necessarily see this little bridge area being done very widely. And there's plenty of people who are wonderful people that I will talk about in the future who do financial literacy courses online and help encourage women to be able to step up to those next levels. There's lots of people you can follow on Instagram, which I will also talk about online. But for me, this is the beginner's basic first steps of financial literacy, and it's an empowerment course. So I know it's all about financial literacy, but it's more about empowerment, confidence boosting, these types of areas, because I realize, especially with the investment area, when you have confidence in your own financial choices, you can do whatever you like. You can make your own choices and feel like it's okay to make mistakes. But if we don't have confidence that we know ourselves, which is what we gain in these areas, right? These are the eyes-on areas. These are getting to know ourselves. And when we gain in those areas, then we step into, after these three little piggies, then we step into this area because we feel more comfortable to not necessarily know what we're doing, but to be able to ask people who do know what they're doing for advice and be able to tell whether we're being like Red Riding Hooded or scammed or led astray, that type of thing. So this area definitely comes after these. And it's in the 5 pillars because we need to know about it and we need to be able to figure out what our style is after we've done all this, right? But these are just the basics. And then the wills and legacies, it's actually the fastest area that any of us can do. We can go and get our wills done. We do that because we love our family. And if anything were to happen to us, we want them to be looked after and not have to deal with the stress of trying to access our bank accounts, our social accounts, or any of that. It pretty much just, the will just says, these people are allowed to access my stuff and look after things for me because I'm not here. That's it. That's what a will does for us. It will say other things as well, obviously, in very technical legal terms. But the gist of it is that my loved ones get to look after my stuff for me, including my money. Without it, your loved ones have to fight to try and prove that they can access that. And frankly, I would rather my loved ones get to focus on what is the most important to them, which is healing and recovering after whatever has happened to me. And I don't want them to have to deal with all this legal stuff of having to try and get access to my like Facebook account. I mean, really, like I care about them too much to risk any chance of them having to do that. So my will's been in place since I was like 21. I was like, oh my gosh, as soon as I found out that probate was a thing, I was like, oh, I'm not leaving my family with that. That's crazy. I could just go and get a will done in like 20, 30 minutes and then there's no worries. They don't have to go through 6 months to years of having to untangle stuff just to try and get access to things because I've been too careless to just go ahead and do that really quickly. Like it's absolutely crazy why anyone over 18 doesn't have a will. And that is a stance that I will keep and keep saying because, you know, we don't obviously, I mean, I'm older than 21 now, but, you know, I haven't died. Hi, the maze. I haven't died from doing my will and I've updated it a few times. So I do feel like I am like adulting and responsibling by having a will and just having it there in the legacy file, which is also a file that is really important to have in place when you start building wealth, when you have that investing area, and when you start building things and you're like, actually, I want more. I want more to do good with. The more money that we have and our cup overflows, right? Our cup is looked after. We look after ourselves with our cup with the first 3, and we say, okay, our cup is sorted out and it overflows, and all the overflow can go to everybody else, like not from like, oh, I'm going to give you money, but I'm going to have the time to help you like learn how to fish, how to make or get, you know, your own money matters sorted out, or I'm going to give back to community, or I'm going to give back to charity. Like these types of areas, when our cup overflows, that's what money's for. That's why aiming to have our stability in place so we look after ourselves, our family is so important. And with the wills and legacy file, that's all it is. It's just saying our wills, our families are looked after, our wills in place, and we are looking after our loved ones and then giving back into the world as we see fit, right? Helping people help themselves, helping people help others, and generally, you know, making an impact to make the world better, because there's, you know, plenty of stuff out there that's very difficult. Life is hard and life is stressful, and there's many things that are, you know, how they are and could potentially, or we wish potentially they would be different. All we can really impact is what we do and how we live, give back, influence, and affect the people in our own lives. And that is something that is a great luxury, that when we are able to, yes, I'm mixed. No, that's not what wills are for, the maze. That's terrible. He said that they're for holding over your children to keep them in line. So That's so not. You should watch some Dave Ramsey videos on that. He has some really strong, clear views on wills and legacy planning. I think he has a meeting. I can't remember if it's every month or every year, maybe an annual meeting, and he has everyone at the table and says, "This is how things are lined out," so it's all clear. So that things are visible and people are like, well, this is how it is. But he also has parameters in place. So like if you follow these principles and do good and give back in the world and live by my values, then you get this money. And if not, and you want to be a terrible person, then you don't. So I guess it's kind of like that, but also not really. It's more holding people to their highest standard. So anyhow, we can go into a whole conversation on wills another time. But just before I sign off, part of the reason why, or main reason why I wanted to do this was because having freedom to do the things that mean the most to us and give back the most into the world often is best when we have stable financials to rely on. If we don't have to stress about the day-to-day life, about our basic finances, about our retirement, then we can focus more on living and actualizing what we're really good at, what we can really bring into the world. And when we have that space to do that, the world is better for our gifts being in it. And I think that the basics of financial literacy are really valuable for any of us to start applying today in any area of our life. And then we can share our empowerment with ourselves, with our family, with our loved ones, not actively, but just by example. We don't have to be shouting about how, we've learned these 5 pillars and everyone should use them. That never works. But when we do start applying things in our lives and feeling like we are more aligned with our own personal values and goals and true self, then we know that we are doing what's right for us and we are using money how it's meant to be used, which is as a tool to be able to support us to be our best in life and to support ourselves, our family, and others in life. That is what money's for. Yes, we can use it for buying nice things that we enjoy, that support us in our life. I like to buy random jewelry from random brands online, and I enjoy that, or from jewelers. Self-educating yourself is vital, as the Maze has said. Open, retirement accounts of whatever type work for you in whatever country you're in. That's absolutely key, what Maze has just said, and a really good summary for my little ramble. When we start to know and realize that self-educating ourselves in basic financial literacy is a key to empowerment and empowering our own financial lives, we can change our entire future. Because when we realize that no one else is going to teach us this stuff, we can take the reins and say, I'm going to learn it, even if it's just in small parts, even if it's just in listening to Raven ramble about money stuff, and starting to look for other people who will also ramble or be more succinct about money stuff. Mine is just my beginner's personal experience. And that's, well, that might not my beginner's personal experience, but mine is beginner level financial literacy from my personal experience is probably better put, because I'm no longer a beginner. But when I started out and through my journey, I realized that the beginner's part was the part that was the hardest emotional obstacle for me to psychologically overcome and feel very stable in, which is why I had to actually create these 5 pillars of money mind, which is money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. And I created those 5 pillars for my own family use and realized anyone can use them and apply them in their own lives for their own family if they so choose. Not advice, just sharing my experience and saying, if this works for you and helps you in some way so you don't have to figure it out like I did, great. Because then you can find what your formula is within these 5 pillars and go on your way. Bring your gifts into the world. You know, work on those areas. Do really well in each area in your own specific style and say, okay, the basics of financial stability are there. If I want to build wealth on top of that, I can. If I want to do something that is different to what I'm currently doing, I have options to be able to consider how that would work, rather than all of our emotional space being taken up by stress emotions that are to do with, I'm not quite sure what's going on in my money life. Uncertainty and our brains don't work well together. So these 5 pillars are here to help the uncertainty diffuse. We know we're doing the 5 pillars. They're very basic. Even if we do the laziest way possible, even if we did lazy style, which I'll do maybe a broadcast another day on lazy style 5 pillars versus very active 5 pillars. So let me just write that down. Lazy style versus active 5 pillars. So if we were, example, to do a lazy style, we just look at our money mindsets, most importantly, really assess that, then just do regular savings or debt payoff. We would do budgeting, monthly tracking, like just track our monthly expenses for like 3 months or something. And then if we have no debt anymore, then we would go into like regular long-term buy and hold kind of investing style and figure out from there what we want to do with also our will in place. That's so simple, right? It's the simplest, easiest way to possibly do the 5 pillars. There's a much more active approach where you can get much better results, but it's up to everybody. You know, not everybody wants to do this in a very eager, active way. And for a lot of us, we have so many other things to focus on. Just having these in place, beginner level, advanced level, just simply in place is going to make more of an impact than not having them at all. So these 5 pillars, money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy, will have more of an impact in our life just being there at all than not having anything. It will really make a difference. I definitely found that, and hopefully other people around the world will start to see and explore whether these styles will work for them and see if it works to make a difference in their lives too. I really hope it would. Seeing the difference that it made in my own personal life and from feedback that I've gotten from other people, it sounds like it's an interesting concept that, you know, is needed, useful, helpful. And really, if I look at like my brand words, the brand words of the values of my business are simple, helpful, and empowering. And this business is built to be simple, helpful, and empowering. That's really it. that's the point of the brand and the business at all, is really just to help whoever it can help in whatever way it can help for people to take the next steps and find their own personal style in their money management. So I'm Raven. Thank you very much for joining. I will see you again another time, probably next week, because I'll be broadcasting on 3 days of the week, and then I have all my meetings in the last 2 days of the week. So fun times, fun meetings, you know, obviously. But thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you over on my Instagram at Raven Tao, or on any of our other social medias. So thank you for watching one of these early videos, and for everyone who's joined, hi Maze, hi everybody else who's joined, thank you for joining. I know that there will have to be a lot of growth and expansion, and so I look forward to growing this brand together with you all on this journey. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you next time. Bye.